just what I'm fishing for.
Okay.
But this is the four I picked, and then maybe you can help me along. We'll go down 4-1. Let's go with number four. I would say the fashion in the 1980s. If you watch like Heck of a
Or the
Year,
lack thereof.
right? Even better in the 80s. If you watch like a 1985 Cardinals World Series, there's a lot of fur. I'd even say the hair is a little high. But now it's like Cardinal fans wear jerseys. There's always like this, in the 60s you watch and they're all in their suits and they look good. Everyone's got like top hats and they're dressed well. You get into the 70s, you don't see a lot of video of anything going on in the 70s, but in the 80s, you got like, I guess, tight shirt, bad hair. We'll talk about what my number one thing is that you don't see anymore in the 80s. I guess it's things that we miss from the 80s so that's the fashion, I guess, I would say. Because now everyone kind of looks the same. They're all wearing like a Cardinal giveaway or their favorite jersey. And back then, put on your red sweater and kind of pop your collar a little bit with your.
Right. There was no Ryan Ludwig jerseys in the 1980s.
No. What was your favorite fashion of the 80s there, Mike, at baseball games?
I'd say, the tank top. That was universal. You got the fro and the mustache and the tank top and just ready to rip it off and celebrate. You think about the guys like jumping on the field with, as part of these celebrations in the 80s and things like that. And it looks like a lot different. It looks like a different era. And
Yeah, that is funny you mentioned that. That could have been something that we put on the list. Fans getting to run on the field during celebrations, because you don't see that anymore. But it just is like, yeah, everybody jump the fence, go celebrate with the team. In 82, it's a sea of people. I guess by 85, that didn't go on in St. Louis, but it did at 86 for the Mets. Feels like that was like the last one, but that's a good one. Well, because the Yankees had it in the early 80s. Fans running on the field and just having a good time. Hank Aaron, a couple guys just got to shake his hand. Oh, that's a good one. That's the 70s.
Right.
But
I'd say access as well. So even through the 90s, there was a lot of access in the stadium for kids and behind the scenes and everything like that. And then, rightfully so, one kind of changed that, and it really has got nothing but more intensified since.
Okay, another thing, number three I missed from the 80s, going to the ball yard. Kind of ball yard specific is bringing your own sign. I just remember my dad made a sign and we would take it down. You would be able to hang them along the bleachers, or there was a giant sign area kind of between third base and the foul pole, and there was always a place for a sign. And I remember my dad making one, and we brought one to the game and hung it. I remember the last time I brought a sign was Ron Gant's return to Busch as a Philly, and he had said some really bad things about Tony Russo. And it was a day game, and we decided to have a lot of drinks. We brought a sign, and we started yelling, and we were Ron Gant anti-fan club, and we had that sign. And every time he came out to left field, we held it up. I was way too old to be doing this, but I will say number one is on the list. Also happened at that day at Ron Gant. So that's a teaser. But I miss bringing your own sign. The sign guy's still there. That's sort of kitschy, and he's been doing it a long time. But
it's not a culture thing. And sometimes, during the game, they'll say, hey, where are you from? And you hold up a sign. But people got a lot more creative, and you had a little bit more artistic, a little bit more of an artistic leash to be funny and not so PC, things like that. And but now that we have the Cardinals usher Gustavo, you really can't do much in there. Even shirts are regulated. Anything, you remember about the try not to suck shirts and all that drama that caused. And I think I had a Cubs suck shirt at one time that I had turned inside out for a game. It's just like, just let people come out and enjoy some ball yard and have some fun. They're not hurting anybody. You're not going to ruin a 4-year-old's experience by what you have on your shirt. So
you were wearing a Cub shirt. Did you just mention that? Try not to suck.
Cubs suck.
Because then Joe Madden had the try not to suck shirts, and then that got people.
That became a big deal.
Yeah. Number two, things I missed from 80s baseball and being at the ball yard: theme songs. 1982, we had Celebration. We had The Heat Is On in 85. We had Shakedown in 1987, kind of forgotten. But Beverly Hills Cop 2 was big. Bob Seger, if you go back, I'll play it for you. But Shakedown, Breakdown, Takedown, everybody listen to the run. And then they had the 87 highlights. I think KHTR put it together. 1996, We're Gonna Win by Brian Adams. It was kind of at the end of 96, was sort of a big one. And then in the 2000, I believe, around that area, was the Tony La Russa sung to the Macarena. He squeezes out, wins like an automatic juicer, Tony La Russa.
Yeah.
So no theme songs in baseball, but then it got brought back by the Blues. Ironically,
Right.
Gloria became...
nice.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote this back in 2014 or whatever I wrote it, theme songs had gone away, but then Gloria came back. So in baseball, we need theme songs again. But this was something I was opining to come back for, and now the Gloria thing was so important to that Blues run. It was Layla, Gloria, Bennington. The things that happened in a championship run. You got to have a theme song. The Cardinals, when they were winning in 2011, they don't have one. The only thing I think about in 2011, I guess, was when you went to the ballpark in 2012. They had the fun song, These Nights or Some Nights, and it kind of, but that was 15, 16 months later. So
No, and the other thing that was great about Gloria is the Blues transition out of it nicely. You know, you turn that page, so you had that song, it's stuck in that moment, and that's it. Whereas, 3 years later in 14, people are still wearing Raleigh Squirrel stuff, and one of the hospitals has a Raleigh Squirrel mascot. It's like, let it go. It was one game. It was an important game, and it's one game. Get over it.
Do it for Torty. I got my Do It for Torty shirt.
Yeah.
So evidently now the Blues were working up Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy.
Right.
So if things would have continued along the way, we may have been hearing that more. Maybe, I got to guess they're not going to play in St. Louis, so I guess it doesn't matter. But maybe Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy. Maybe we'll get some of that here at the end of this COVID crap.
Maybe that'll be on the telecast to pump that in if they show it. But I will say this. If coronavirus has one casualty, hopefully it's the Six Flags theme song, Vega Bus, or whatever the Cardinals use whenever they score. It's old. It's played out. It has no importance except for just that it's been played. It needs to go. Bye. See ya. Okay. Done.
While we're cleansing a lot of things, you have time to... Let's get rid of everybody. Clap your hands. I mean, that was a Mets thing, 06. All I heard, it was at Shea. And then we brought it in, and I said, this is not... Why are we doing that? We don't need to do this. I got a little angry, and I agree. Cleanse. Let's cleanse some COVID. Right. Honorable mentions. Oh, you have something?
We need to come up with a list. We'll get a petition signed by all of our viewers. And
I even laugh at that, but go ahead.
And we'll
there's more listeners.
We'll get a movement started.
I think there's more listeners. I do see the stats on the listens. People seem to want to wait and listen to it in their car or wherever they go. Honorable mentions, Ozzie flips. Just something you will never see. I mean, Colton Wong has threatened, I think, to do it, and it would be awesome. But I missed the Ozzie flips. It meant it was opening day. It meant it was a playoff game. Don't see it anymore. AstroTurf, kind of making a comeback. All these things I wrote. Like I said, I wrote it in 2013. Wasn't there a stadium that's kind of putting AstroTurf? Is it Arizona or somewhere putting in turf again? It's coming back.
I'm not sure, but it will never be that turf. I mean, that's cement. That was such a vital role in the Cardinals of the 80s because it was that was their thing, and they said, okay, this is the park we play in. This is what we have. What can we do with it? And they put 2 and 2 together and got a great product out of it with speed and great defense.
So those are some of my honorable mentions. Do you have a number one or an honorable mention before I give my number one, which I think is everyone's number? It's going to have to.
I'd say affordability, maybe.
$5 bleacher seats. Walk up and buy bleacher seats or stand in line. I remember that's a good one. I remember you would just go at 5:00, stand in line. But you can. They have like $6 tickets now. I mean, you could sit in the upper deck.
Yeah, you got to get up in the morning and go stand in line, and then you don't know where you're sitting.
I'm going to pass on that.
Practice. I love that. There should be easier ways for a family of 4 to get into a game. At each part of the day, and not for $18 a ticket to stand. I'm
gonna challenge you on that one, but okay. I mean, the hot dog costs more than a ticket sometimes, so that's a problem. But so number one on my list of things I missed from the 80s, and I remember I had a female editor, and she thought this was very odd that this is the video I wanted to show over and over for about a minute. But in the 80s, no shirt, no shoes, no problem. You go in, take that shirt off. If you watch any clip from the 80s, there's people bare chested for miles. It's like Hoosier City. It's the most amazing. Like if that happened today, people would be like, "What the hell is going on here?" But back then, it was like, "Hey, it's 90 degrees. Got the shirt off. We're gonna." I mean, it's just funny if you go back to YouTube. It's just where I saw it, and you look at the bleachers in Chicago or here or any. I guess it was mostly Midwestern. I would assume. I don't know if this translated to New York or California, but I know here in the Midwest, if you look at some of these games from the mid '80s. Take the shirt off. Let it go.
Right. Even I was watching the MLB had the Sandberg game on as one of the things.
I call it the Willie McGee game. By the way,
McGree had a great game
cycle
too. And when those balls would go into the bleachers, and even that, it's like, why is there so much red at this Cubs game? I know they were playing the Cardinals in the bleachers, and then you look a little closer. And it was Chicago guys with their shirts off. And they were just beat red because they've been out there for about 4 hours.
It's a long game. Yeah, and back then it didn't matter. So I don't know if I need that back, but I love that it was a thing that could happen. So
that's another thing that's part of that is the no lights, and that kind of shifting the time because, when a lot of the day games were – where teams had primarily day games and that too. You get 1 or 2 a day here and there, but to have a standard team playing a lot of day games, that's something I kind of miss.
I always say the Cubs are part of my childhood. I came home from school; they were on every day on WGN. I had WGN by 1985, and it kind of course I loved Harry Carey. I was like, who is this guy? And the game was presented as it should have been. As a party and fun, and the director Arnie Harris was always showing between every pitch there was a fan in a halter top or just this he was finding what made that ballpark special. It was part of the whole thing, and it's why I'm not a Cub fan, but I definitely enjoy watching Cub games still just because of Wrigley. So. Fun times. Well, we open baseball cards to finish this. I do want to mention, Mike, so coming up, there will be a documentary on Mark McGwire, and evidently they're going to use some of the video from my YouTube channel, so keep an eye on that. The Mark McGwire 30 for 30 with Sammy. We're talking Cubs-Cardinals. It's going to be pretty good. They interviewed Sammy. They interviewed McGwire, so those guys haven't really talked about that year really in depth, I don't think, this far out. So I'm looking forward to it. Plus, I'm hoping to see myself on it, if I can plug myself.
And it'll be interesting because you think about some of the fallback from the Jordan documentary and some of the things that happened with that and some of the relationships and knowing how Tony is to see the aftermath of, if there's anybody in this documentary that might flip or maybe they have one thing that Tony might not like reading some of that stuff coming out of that. I think that'll be kind of like that sidebar that you almost look forward to the aftermath because it's going to happen.
Yeah, Tony always seems to have to do the defense tour after, so you'll be hearing a lot of Tony La Russa interviews over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure.
At one of the ARF meetings.
Well, that's one of my lists I want to do, the 7 things I miss about Tony, and that might be a fun list. We'll do